obviously you're getting a lot of that sensory overload right now, like your high school dreams come true. And again, are you
Go ahead.
Today is April the 29th, 2020, and whereby exactly 1 year, 1 month, and 9 days ago since I left Germany to go work and travel in Canada. My original plan was actually to stay in Canada only for 6 months, but I mean, things obviously changed a bit. My journey started pretty early in the day on March the 20th, when I went to Munich to take a plane to Frankfurt, and from Frankfurt I took a 10-hour plane to go to Vancouver. In Vancouver it took me about 3 hours to get through the airport and activate my visa. And after that I got picked up from a lady who was part of the travel agency I was with, and she took me then to the hostel where I should stay for the next 3 days. While we were exploring, I was mostly just looking for a cannabis store, but it took us only like 15 minutes till we find the first store. When we arrived there, I just bought a joint and some cookies. Then we went to Granville Island to enjoy the joint and the cookies, but it was actually not as enjoyable as someone of you might think it would have been. We ate half of the cookie and we smoked the joint, and I was 26 hours awake, so you can imagine I greened out pretty hard. And because I was only 4 hours in the country at this moment, I just started tripping out pretty hard because I was thinking, oh my god, why did I make this decision? Everyone around me is speaking English. Like, what is happening? So after an hour and after my first poutine and my first Canadian beer, the greening out got slightly better, and all I did on that day was just going to the hostel and falling straight to sleep because I was baked as fuck. On the next day, we had a quick introduction to Canada. It was like a presentation from the travel agency who was helping us out in Vancouver. But me and the girl who wanted to go were together completely lost the direction because we were super confused about like the street name system here in Canada. So we went into the complete opposite direction, but like after half an hour we found the way, and we were like half an hour too late, but it was fine. Then I just bought a bit more weed, and it was actually funny because all the time during the time in the hostel I was scared that I would wake up my roommates if I come home baked or anything. But the funny thing was I was always the first person who was in the room, and I was always so baked that I didn't even notice my roommates at all. After the 3 days in the hostel, I went to North Vancouver to a homestay family where I should stay for the next 2 weeks because I was going to a language school to refresh my English a bit and to just get used to the Canadian way of life. And I also went to the first 420 volunteer meetings. The 420 festival meetings were actually super fun. I mean, there were a lot of like hardcore stoners but they were all overall super nice people, and I had a really fun time smoking cannabis with them. And it was also at one of those meetings that I saw like a massive amount of cannabis for the first time in my life, because there was a guy there who was rolling 1,000 joints for the 420 festival that we then just handed out for free at the festival, which was awesome. During my second week at the homestay, I just went around after school to explore more of the cannabis dispensaries in Vancouver. And in one of the dispensaries, I asked the guy if they are maybe hiring or if it would be even possible as a German to like sell weed in Canada. And he was telling me that he's from France, so it's like obviously not a problem to be from Europe and to work in the cannabis industry. So what I did is I just updated all my resumes and I just dropped them off at like every single cannabis dispensary in Vancouver. At this time I had no idea about like the legal and like the gray market dispensaries, but however I just went to like the most fanciest cannabis dispensary in Vancouver. And yeah, they were all wearing aprons, and they had like small little plastic jars where you could look at the flower and even smell the flower. So I knew for sure that I wanted to start at this dispensary. The only problem I had at this point was that I didn't had any like cannabis knowledge, or like I had never worked in the cannabis industry. However, the thing I did is just I made a 5-hour course to become like a certified bud tender. It was like an online course. And I also bought a book about cannabis so I could prove to everyone where I was applying that I was already confident with cannabis. After a couple days and after going to the nice fancy cannabis dispensary again and again and again, I actually received an invitation for a job interview with the CEO. The funny thing about the job interview was that the CEO was mostly mentioning that I'm talking too loud. I'm Bavarian and my dad is a soccer player, so like being loud is just in my nature. I mean, almost everyone who knows me knows that I talk pretty loud. However, I just tried to talk a bit more quiet, and when they actually gave me the job, and my first day at work was only one day before 420, and on 420 I just helped to set up the booths for the 420 festival, and afterwards I went to work and it was a really busy day at the cannabis store on 420. I realized pretty fast after my first couple of days working in the cannabis dispensary that this was just one of the greatest jobs I've ever had. So instead of doing work and traveling, I just cut the travel part and I started settling down. And yeah, I got promoted to supervisor. Then after that, I got promoted to assistant manager, and in March this year I even got promoted to knowledge team supervisor, which is basically I'm like guiding a cannabis testing team for our company. Working in a cannabis dispensary is actually not as easy as probably most of the people out there would think it is, especially as assistant manager where you got like a lot of responsibility over the store as well. But the funny thing was, every day after work when I felt kind of stressed, I smoked a joint and I went from being stressed to, you know what? So it's actually not as difficult. Like, why am I stressing? Something else I started besides being part of the Canadian cannabis industry was I started modeling, and I actually got into modeling in July 2019 when I went to my first Van City Wares meetup, which is just a public meetup of like creative photographers or like models in Vancouver. I was actually pretty nervous when I went to the meetup because I didn't consider myself as a model. Like, for sure I wanted to model, but I didn't even know if this was going to work out. But everyone there was just so nice and appreciated like my look and my style, and all the photographers wanted to take photos with me, which felt so weird to me, but it actually gave me like a huge confidence boost. Yeah, I mean, I fell in love with modeling because it's just an awesome way to connect to so many creative and inspiring people. And I also had a paid cannabis shooting, and I'm like looking for like more paid shootings or like cannabis shootings in the future as well, which is going to be fun. All I did during the year in Canada was basically working in the cannabis store, doing some modeling, working out, and I also went to Banff for 2 weeks in the summer in Canada as well, which was also an amazing time. Banff is like the most beautiful piece of nature I've ever seen in my life. I did all of that and suddenly it was December and we had our staff Christmas party from our company, which was like the most insane Christmas party I've ever had. And I also met the guy who's taking this video right now at the Christmas party as well. So for work I just started to get more into like cannabis knowledge and especially like the testing aspects of cannabis. So I even made some more cannabis courses. So right now I'm even a certified cannabis sommelier. After a while I got even promoted into our company's head office, where my main task right now would have been to lead the cannabis testing teams. And I mean, that's the most awesome job you could ever get. So yeah, that's like one of the important reasons why I don't want to leave this country right now. So I started working in the office, I was smoking a lot of cannabis for testing purposes, and I even started Muay Thai kickboxing, and I was working out a lot and like I was getting in a really good shape. Then COVID happened. I felt like everything was taken from me. Like our head office was closed, I had to go back and work in the store again. I couldn't test any cannabis anymore. There are no cannabis parties or anything right now. I just thought, okay, I'm like at a down in my life. So I actually got kind of frustrated, but then I just started to realize that I'm still super fortunate in an unfortunate situation. First of all, the company sponsored my visa, so I can stay in Canada for another year. This was just a bit challenging because Julian and me, we crossed the American border on the day when the Canadian government announced that we're going to close the borders. So this was a lot of overwhelming and pretty stressful, but I'm still in the country and I mean, I still got my visa. So I also have to isolate here, but I mean, isolating here is basically still working because cannabis is essential service here. Second of all, I'm surrounded in Vancouver by a really beautiful and stunning nature. So isolating here is pretty much just walking to the beach, enjoying the sunset and smoking a joint. My next goal right now is just getting everything ready for permanent resident, so I can become a permanent resident in Vancouver and start settling down here. So now you guys know what I did this 1 year in Vancouver, and now you know why I don't want to come back to Germany anymore. And yeah, I hope you liked the video, and I'm looking forward to produce more videos for you guys. And yeah, we will probably talk a lot about cannabis, working out, fitness, modeling, recipes, whatever you want to see.